My ex-wife couldn't accept I moved on after she cheated with my brother. She harassed my new girlfriend for months and kept detailed journals about hurting her. My ex-wife, Caitlin, 39F, and I, 42M, divorced 8 months ago after she left me for my own brother Connor, 44M, and now she won't leave me alone. Let me start from the beginning. Caitlin and I were married for 15 years. We have 2 kids together, Susan, 12F, and Harry, 9M. I thought we had a solid marriage, but looking back, I can see the cracks were there for years. Caitlin always had issues with anger management. She would blow up over small things like dishes in the sink or forgetting to pick up milk. These weren't just normal arguments either. She would throw things, slam doors so hard they left marks on the walls, and yell until the neighbors could hear. The kids started spending more time in their rooms when she got like this. I worked as a construction foreman, often pulling 12-hour days to support our family. Caitlin worked part-time at a dental office but always complained that I wasn't home enough. When I got home exhausted, she would start fights about household chores or money. I'd usually just apologize and try to fix whatever was bothering her. The worst part was how she treated me in front of others. At family gatherings, she would make jokes about how useless I was around the house or how I never helped with the kids. My family would laugh it off, but it stung every time. She once told my mother that she felt like a single parent because I was never around. Things got really bad about 2 years ago when my brother Connor got divorced from his wife Linda. Connor moved back to our town and started coming around more often. He's always been the charming one in the family. He's a sales manager at a car dealership and has this way of making everyone laugh. Where I'm quiet and practical, he's loud and entertaining. Caitlin started dressing up more when she knew Connor was coming over. She would do her hair and makeup even if we were just having a barbecue in the backyard. I noticed but didn't think much of it at first. She said she just wanted to look nice for family events. Connor would bring gifts for the kids and flowers for Caitlin. He said it was just being polite, but he never brought anything for me or my wife when he visited other family members. Caitlin would light up when he walked in the room in a way she hadn't for me in years. The 3 of us started hanging out more. Connor would suggest we all go out to dinner or catch a movie. Caitlin always wanted to sit between us at restaurants. She would laugh extra loud at Connor's jokes and touch his arm when she talked to him. I told myself I was being paranoid. Last Christmas, we hosted the family dinner. Caitlin spent days preparing everything perfectly. She bought a new dress and got her nails done. During dinner, I watched her and Connor sharing inside jokes and finishing each other's sentences. When I tried to join the conversation, they would change the subject. After everyone left, I was cleaning up the kitchen when I found Caitlin and Connor on the back porch. They weren't doing anything inappropriate, just talking quietly with their heads close together. When they saw me, they both stepped apart quickly. Caitlin said they were just discussing Connor's job situation. In January, Caitlin started staying out later after work. She said the dental office was doing inventory or she was helping her friend with wedding planning. She would come home around 9 or 10 at night, shower immediately, and go straight to bed. When I asked about her day, she would give short answers and seem irritated. I found out the truth on Valentine's Day. I decided to surprise Caitlin at work with lunch, but her coworker told me she had called in sick. I drove home and found Connor's truck in our driveway. I used my key and walked into my own house to find my wife and brother on my couch. Caitlin didn't even try to deny it. She just looked at me and said she was done pretending. Connor grabbed his shirt and left without saying a word. Caitlin told me she had been seeing him for 3 months and that she was moving out. I asked her why. She said Connor made her laugh and that I had become boring. She said I was always tired and never wanted to do anything fun. She said Connor understood her in a way I never had. The divorce went through quickly since Caitlin didn't contest anything. She moved into an apartment across town with Connor. The kids were devastated, especially Harry, who kept asking when mommy was coming home. For months, I barely functioned. I would drop the kids at school, go to work, pick them up, make dinner, and go to bed. Weekends were the hardest because the house felt too quiet. The kids would spend every other weekend with Caitlin and Connor, and those were the worst days. My coworker Tom kept inviting me to grab drinks after work, but I always declined. Finally, in June, he wore me down and I agreed to meet him at a bar downtown. That's where I met Kim, 37F. Kim was there with her sister, celebrating a promotion at her marketing job. Tom knew her sister from somewhere and introduced us. Kim was completely different from Caitlin, calm, easy to talk to, and she actually listened when I spoke. We talked for hours about everything except my divorce. We started dating slowly. Kim knew about my situation and never pushed for more than I was ready for. She would come to my house sometimes and help with dinner or homework. The kids liked her immediately because she didn't try too hard to win them over. She just treated them like regular people. Kim has her own house about 20 minutes away. It's smaller than mine, but it's peaceful. We started spending weekends there when the kids were with Caitlin. I could actually relax for the first time in months. This is where the problem started. Caitlin found out about Kim somehow and completely lost it. She started calling me at all hours asking who Kim was and why I was introducing the kids to random women. I reminded her that she was living with my brother and that she didn't get a say in my personal life anymore. Caitlin began showing up at my house unannounced. She said she was checking on the kids, but they were always at school when she came. She would walk through the house looking at everything, asking if Kim had been there. She found Kim's coffee mug in the sink once and threw it in the trash. When Kim started staying over on nights when I had the kids, Caitlin called the police. She told them I was exposing her children to a dangerous stranger. The officer was professional but clearly thought the whole thing was ridiculous. He told Caitlin that unless there was evidence of actual danger, she couldn't control who I had in my own home. Caitlin started pumping the kids for information about Kim. She would ask them detailed questions about what we did together and what Kim said to them. Susan told me that her mother made her promise to tell her everything that happened at Daddy's house. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago. Kim and I took the kids to a baseball game downtown. We were having a great time, and the kids were actually acting like kids instead of walking on eggshells. During the 7th inning stretch, I saw Caitlin and Connor in the stands about 10 rows behind us. I don't know how they knew we would be there. Caitlin spent the rest of the game staring at us. When we got up to leave, she followed us to the parking lot. She walked right up to Kim and told her to stay away from her children. Kim stayed calm and told Caitlin that she respected her role as the mother but that Caitlin needed to respect boundaries too. Caitlin started yelling that Kim was trying to replace her and that the kids didn't need another mother. Kim took the kids to our car while I dealt with Caitlin. She was screaming that I was selfish for moving on and that I was confusing the children. Connor finally pulled her away, but not before she yelled that she knew where Kim lived and that this wasn't over. Now I'm genuinely worried. Caitlin has been driving by Kim's house at random times. Kim's neighbor mentioned seeing the same car parked across the street multiple times. Caitlin also started following Kim on social media through fake accounts, liking and commenting on old posts. Yesterday, Kim got flowers delivered to her office with a note that said stay away from what isn't yours. The florist said they were ordered by someone who paid cash and wouldn't give their name. I don't know what to do. The kids are caught in the middle. Caitlin seems to be losing her grip on reality, and Kim is starting to question whether this relationship is worth the drama. I can't blame her, but I also can't let Caitlin control my life forever. Has anyone dealt with something like this? How do you handle an ex who won't accept that it's over? Update 1. I wanted to update everyone on what's been happening because the situation has gotten much worse. After my original post, several people suggested I document everything and consider a restraining order. I started keeping a log of every incident and taking screenshots of Caitlin's social media activity. The harassment escalated quickly after that baseball game. Kim started getting phone calls at work from someone claiming to be conducting a survey, but the questions were clearly designed to get personal information about her schedule and habits. When Kim refused to answer, the caller became aggressive and hung up. Caitlin also began contacting my neighbors. She told Mrs. Peterson next door that she was worried about Kim's influence on the children and asked her to keep an eye on who was coming and going from my house. Mrs. Peterson is 78 and was completely confused by the whole thing. The worst part was what Caitlin started doing to the kids. During their visits with her, she would show them pictures on her phone of me and Kim together that she had clearly taken without our knowledge. She told Susan that Kim was trying to steal their family and asked both kids if Kim ever said anything bad about their mother. Harry started having nightmares and didn't want to go to his mother's apartment anymore. Susan became withdrawn and stopped talking about school or her friends. Both kids seemed terrified of saying the wrong thing around either parent. 3 weeks ago, things came to a head. Kim and I decided to take the kids camping for the weekend at a state park about 2 hours away. We had been planning this trip for weeks, and the kids were excited about hiking and fishing. We set up our campsite Friday evening and had a great time roasting marshmallows and playing cards in the tent. Saturday morning, we went hiking on one of the easier trails. The kids were running ahead, looking at wildflowers and trying to spot animals. Around lunchtime, we came back to our campsite to find Caitlin sitting at our picnic table. She was just waiting there like she belonged. I have no idea how she found us or how long she had been there. Caitlin stood up when she saw us and started yelling that I had kidnapped her children. She said she never gave permission for them to leave the state, which wasn't even true since we were still in state at the park. The kids immediately went quiet and moved behind Kim and me. Other campers started coming over to see what the commotion was about. Caitlin was screaming that Kim was a homewrecker and that I was an unfit father. She demanded that I pack up immediately and bring the kids home. I told Caitlin to leave and reminded her that this was my weekend with the kids according to our custody agreement. She said the agreement didn't give me the right to take them anywhere without her approval. Kim tried to defuse the situation by suggesting we all sit down and talk calmly. Caitlin turned on her and said she had no right to speak about her children. She told Kim that she was nothing but a rebound and that I would get tired of her just like I got tired of everything else. The camp host came over at this point because other families were complaining about the noise. Caitlin immediately switched tactics and started crying, telling him that I had taken her children without permission and that she was just a worried mother trying to protect them. The camp host asked to see our custody paperwork, which I had brought just in case. When he saw that I had legal custody that weekend, he asked Caitlin to leave. She refused and said she wasn't going anywhere without her children. Susan started crying and asking why mommy was being so mean. Harry was clinging to Kim's leg and wouldn't look at his mother. This seemed to set Caitlin off even more, and she accused Kim of turning the children against her. The camp host threatened to call the police if Caitlin didn't leave voluntarily. She finally got in her car but not before telling me that this wasn't over and that I would regret bringing Kim into her children's lives. We tried to salvage the camping trip, but the kids were upset and just wanted to go home. We packed up early and drove back Saturday evening instead of staying through Sunday as planned. When we got to my house, we found that someone had thrown eggs at the front door and windows. The yolk had dried in the sun and was difficult to clean off. My next-door neighbor said she saw a car matching Caitlin's driving slowly past the house around noon Saturday. I called my lawyer Monday morning. He said we had enough evidence to request a restraining order and that Caitlin's behavior was clearly harassing and potentially dangerous. He also suggested that we might need to revisit the custody arrangement if she continued interfering with my parenting time. Kim and I had a long talk that weekend about whether we should continue seeing each other. She said she cared about me and the kids, but that she had never signed up for this level of drama. She needed time to think about whether she wanted to deal with Caitlin's behavior long term. I completely understood her position, but I also realized that letting Caitlin drive Kim away would just encourage more of this behavior in the future. If I backed down now, Caitlin would think she could control any relationship I tried to have. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the following week. My lawyer advised me to avoid all contact with Caitlin except through him and to document any further incidents. 2 days before the hearing, Connor called me for the first time since I caught them together. He said Caitlin was making his life miserable and that her obsession with me and Kim was destroying their relationship. He asked if there was anything I could do to make her back off. I told him that this was the situation he created when he decided to sleep with my wife, and that he would have to figure it out himself. He said Caitlin had been talking about me and Kim constantly and that she spent hours every day checking Kim's social media accounts and driving by her house. Connor also revealed something I didn't know. Apparently, Caitlin had been calling my workplace trying to get me fired. She told my supervisor that I was using company equipment for personal business and that I had been stealing time by leaving early to meet Kim. My boss mentioned this to me in passing, saying he knew it was probably divorce-related nonsense, but asked me to be extra careful about following all company policies. The restraining order was approved. The judge said Caitlin's pattern of behavior constituted harassment and stalking, and that her interference with my custody time was unacceptable. She was ordered to stay at least 100 yards away from me, Kim, and Kim's home and workplace. Caitlin's lawyer argued that she was just trying to protect her children, but the judge pointed out that showing up at our campsite uninvited and vandalizing my property had nothing to do with child welfare. I thought the restraining order would solve the problem, but I was wrong. Caitlin found ways to work around it while technically staying within the legal boundaries. She couldn't contact me directly, so she started using the kids as messengers. During her custody visits, she would tell them things to pass along to me, like asking when Kim was going to move in or whether I was planning to marry her. She also began scheduling activities during my custody time that she claimed were unmovable appointments for the children. Doctor visits, dentist cleanings, and school events all seemed to fall on weekends when the kids were supposed to be with me. When I objected, she would say these were the only available appointments and that the children's health and education came first. She was technically right, but the pattern was obvious. Kim decided to give our relationship another chance, but she asked me to be completely honest about how bad things might get. I told her I honestly didn't know, but that Caitlin seemed determined to make both our lives miserable. We're still together, but the stress is affecting everything. Kim has started looking over her shoulder when she leaves work. I'm constantly worried about what Caitlin will do next. The kids are caught in the middle and showing signs of the stress. I don't know how to make this stop without completely giving up on having a personal life, and I'm not sure that would even work at this point. Update 2: The situation with Caitlin has taken some unexpected turns, and I wanted to update everyone who has been following this mess. First, the restraining order didn't stop her behavior like I hoped it would. Caitlin became more creative about finding ways to interfere with my life while technically staying within the legal boundaries. She started showing up at places where she knew I would be, but always maintaining the required distance. When I took the kids to their soccer games, she would park exactly 110 yards away and watch through binoculars. At the grocery store, she would follow me through the aisles but always stay far enough away that she couldn't be accused of violating the order. Kim's work situation became unbearable. Even though Caitlin couldn't contact her directly, she found other ways to cause problems. Someone started calling Kim's office multiple times a day and hanging up. Her company's main phone number was posted on social media with false reviews claiming their employees were unprofessional and unreliable. Kim's boss eventually called her in for a meeting about the disruption to their workplace. Kim explained the situation, and her boss was understanding but made it clear that they couldn't continue having their business affected by her personal problems. The kids were getting worse too. Susan started having stomachaches on days when she was supposed to visit her mother. Harry began wetting the bed again, something he hadn't done in years. Both of them seemed afraid to mention Kim around their mother, but also afraid not to answer when Caitlin questioned them about her. My lawyer suggested we document everything and prepare to request a modification of the custody agreement. He said Caitlin's behavior was affecting the children's well-being, and that might be grounds for reducing her custody time. Then something happened that changed everything. 6 weeks ago, I got a call from Linda, Connor's ex-wife. I hadn't spoken to her since their divorce, but she said she had information I needed to hear. Linda asked if I could meet her for coffee, away from anywhere Caitlin might see us. I was hesitant because I didn't want to get involved in more family drama, but she said it was about the kids' safety. We met at a diner on the other side of town. Linda looked terrible, thin and tired, like she hadn't been sleeping. She told me that Connor had been calling her, complaining about Caitlin's behavior and asking if he could stay at Linda's house sometimes when Caitlin got too intense. According to Linda, Caitlin's obsession with me and Kim had completely taken over her life. She spent hours every day parked near Kim's house or workplace. She had filled multiple notebooks with information about Kim's daily routine, including what time she left for work, where she shopped, and who her friends were. Connor told Linda that Caitlin barely paid attention to the kids during her custody visits because she was too busy planning ways to spy on Kim and me. She would leave Susan and Harry with Connor while she drove around looking for my truck or Kim's car. But the most disturbing thing Linda told me was that Caitlin had started talking about making Kim disappear. Connor wasn't sure if she meant she wanted Kim to move away or something more serious, but Caitlin had been researching Kim's background and looking up information about her family. Linda said Connor was scared of Caitlin and didn't know how to get out of the relationship. Apparently, Caitlin had threatened to tell everyone that Connor was the one stalking me if he tried to leave her. She also threatened to claim that he was inappropriate with Susan and Harry. I asked Linda why she was telling me this. She said that despite everything that had happened between us, she didn't want to see innocent people get hurt. She also admitted that she still cared about Connor and was worried about what Caitlin might do to him if he tried to break up with her. I thanked Linda for the information and immediately called my lawyer. He said we needed to take this to the police right away, especially the part about Caitlin researching Kim's background and talking about making her disappear. The detective I spoke with took the report seriously, particularly when I showed him the documentation I had been keeping of Caitlin's behavior. He said they would investigate, but that it might be difficult to prove criminal intent based on second-hand information from Connor. I also had to make a decision about whether to tell Kim what Linda had shared with me. I decided she deserved to know, even though I knew it would frighten her. Kim's reaction was exactly what I expected. She was scared but also angry that Caitlin's behavior had escalated to this level. She asked if I thought she should stay somewhere else for a while, but I didn't want Caitlin to think she had won by driving Kim away. We decided to install security cameras at both our houses and change Kim's work schedule so she wouldn't be predictable. Kim also told her boss about the escalated threats, and her company agreed to let her work from home temporarily. The police investigation moved faster than I expected. When they interviewed Connor, he confirmed everything Linda had told me and provided additional details. He said Caitlin had been making lists of Kim's friends and coworkers, and that she had driven by Kim's parents' house several times. Connor also revealed that Caitlin had been stealing mail from Kim's mailbox to get personal information. She had opened credit card statements and utility bills, looking for details about Kim's finances and daily routine. Most importantly, Connor had recorded one of Caitlin's rants about Kim on his phone. In the recording, Caitlin said she wished Kim would just die in a car accident so everyone's problems would be solved. She also talked about how easy it would be to cause an accident on the winding road near Kim's house. The police arrested Caitlin the next day on charges of stalking and harassment. They also found the notebooks Linda had mentioned, which contained detailed information about Kim's schedule and personal life, as well as photos of Kim taken without her knowledge. During the arrest, Caitlin completely lost control. She screamed that I had ruined her life and that Kim was destroying her family. She accused me of conspiring with Connor and Linda to frame her, and said that everyone was against her because they were jealous of her relationship. The kids were at school when this happened, but they found out about their mother's arrest when other children started talking about it. Small towns don't keep secrets very well. Susan asked me if her mother was going to jail, and I had to explain that her mother had made some poor choices and needed help. Harry wanted to know if it was his fault that mommy was in trouble. Both children seemed more relieved than upset, which broke my heart. Caitlin was released on bail 2 days later, but the judge modified the restraining order to include stricter conditions. She wasn't allowed to go within 500 yards of Kim or me, she couldn't use any electronic devices to monitor our activities, and she had to surrender her passport. Connor moved out of their apartment the day Caitlin was arrested. Linda let him stay at her house temporarily, though she made it clear this didn't mean they were getting back together. Caitlin's behavior during her court appearances has been erratic. She fired 2 lawyers because they wouldn't argue that she was the victim in this situation. She represents herself now and spends most of her court time ranting about how I turned everyone against her. The custody evaluator recommended that Caitlin's visits with the kids be supervised until she completes a psychological evaluation and anger management program. Caitlin refused both requirements and said the court system was biased against mothers. As a result, Caitlin currently has no custody or visitation rights with Susan and Harry. She can only see them if she agrees to supervision and counseling, which she continues to refuse. The kids are doing better now that they don't have to worry about their mother's unpredictable behavior. Susan's stomachaches have stopped, and Harry is sleeping through the night again. They still ask about their mother sometimes, but they seem relieved not to be caught in the middle of her drama. Kim and I are still together, and our relationship has actually grown stronger through this ordeal. She's shown incredible patience and strength in dealing with everything Caitlin put us through. I never wanted things to end this way with Caitlin, especially for the kids' sake. But her behavior left everyone with no choice but to protect themselves and the children. Update 3: I'm writing this final update because several people have asked about the outcome of Caitlin's legal case and how the kids are doing. Caitlin's trial ended 3 weeks ago. She was convicted on multiple charges including stalking, harassment, and mail theft. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in jail, followed by 3 years of probation. She was also ordered to complete a psychological evaluation and anger management program before she can petition for any visitation rights with Susan and Harry. During the trial, more details came out about the extent of Caitlin's behavior. The prosecution presented evidence that she had been planning to confront Kim at her workplace with a baseball bat. Police found the bat in Caitlin's car along with printed maps of Kim's office building and notes about Kim's daily schedule. Caitlin's court-appointed lawyer tried to argue that she was suffering from a mental health crisis brought on by the stress of divorce, but the prosecution successfully demonstrated that her behavior was calculated and premeditated rather than impulsive. The most disturbing evidence was a journal Caitlin had been keeping where she wrote detailed fantasies about hurting Kim in various ways. She had also researched how to make anonymous phone calls and how to follow someone without being detected. Caitlin showed no remorse during the trial. She continued to insist that she was the victim and that I had orchestrated everything to turn people against her. She accused me of bribing Connor and Linda to lie about her behavior. When the judge read the sentence, Caitlin screamed that this was all Kim's fault and that she would never forgive any of us for destroying her life. She had to be physically removed from the courtroom. Connor testified against Caitlin during the trial, which effectively ended any possibility of them reconciling. He admitted that he had been afraid of Caitlin for months and that she had threatened him multiple times when he tried to set boundaries about her obsession with me and Kim. Connor has been staying with Linda, and they're apparently working on rebuilding their relationship. Linda told me they're taking it very slowly and that Connor is getting counseling to understand how he ended up in such a destructive situation with Caitlin. I don't have much sympathy for Connor since he created this mess in the first place, but I'm glad he finally did the right thing by testifying about Caitlin's behavior. The kids have been doing much better since Caitlin's arrest. Susan is back to being a normal 12-year-old who worries about school projects and friends instead of walking on eggshells around her mother. Harry has stopped wetting the bed and is sleeping through the night consistently. Both kids have asked when they might see their mother again. I've been honest with them that their mother needs to get help for her problems before that can happen, and that it might be a long time. Susan seems to understand this better than Harry, who still hopes his mother will get better soon. We've been seeing a family counselor who specializes in helping children deal with unstable parents. The counselor has been helpful in teaching the kids that their mother's behavior wasn't their fault and that they don't have to fix adult problems. Kim has been amazing throughout this entire situation. She never once suggested that I choose between her and dealing with Caitlin's harassment. She supported me through the police investigation and trial, even when it meant disrupting her own life and career. We've decided to move in together. Kim's house is in a better school district for the kids, and it feels like a fresh start for all of us. Susan and Harry are excited about the move and have already picked out their new bedrooms. Kim and I aren't rushing into marriage, but we've talked about it as a possibility in the future. For now, we're focused on creating a stable environment for the kids and building our relationship without the constant stress of Caitlin's interference. I've learned a lot about myself through this experience. I spent too many years accepting Caitlin's abuse because I thought that was what marriage required. I made excuses for her behavior and blamed myself for not being able to make her happy. Kim has shown me what a healthy relationship looks like. We disagree sometimes, but we talk through problems instead of screaming at each other. She treats the kids with respect and patience, and she's never used them as weapons in adult conflicts. The restraining order against Caitlin remains in effect for another 2 years. Given her behavior during the trial and her lack of remorse, I don't expect her to respect it once she's released from jail. We'll continue to document any violations and work with law enforcement to ensure everyone's safety. Some family members have suggested that I should forgive Caitlin for the kids' sake, but forgiveness doesn't mean allowing someone to continue harmful behavior. The kids are safer and happier without their mother's chaos in their daily lives. If Caitlin genuinely gets help and changes her behavior, I might consider supervised visits in the future. But that decision will be based on what's best for Susan and Harry, not on family pressure or guilt. For anyone dealing with a similar situation, my advice is to document everything, don't hesitate to involve law enforcement when behavior escalates, and prioritize the safety of your children above all else. Don't make excuses for someone who refuses to respect boundaries, even if that person is a family member. Caitlin chose to escalate this situation at every opportunity instead of accepting that our marriage was over and focusing on co-parenting our children. Her choices led to the consequences she's now facing. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. After finding out her husband was cheating, my sister demanded to move into our family home she made me buy from her 15 years ago. When I refused, she tried breaking in. I, 45F, am in a difficult situation with my sister Carissa, 43F, regarding our parents' house, and I need some outside perspective because my entire family is against me right now. For some background, our parents passed away 15 years ago in a car accident when I was 30 and Carissa was 28. They were driving home from their anniversary dinner when a drunk driver hit them. It was devastating for both of us, but we handled grief very differently. Our parents left their house to both of us equally in their will. At that time, Carissa was married to Tom and had just given birth to their first child, Emily. I was single and had just started my career as an accountant at a small firm. The house meant everything to me because our grandfather had built it himself in 1945 after returning from World War II. He spent 5 years building it, and every room has a story. My dad used to tell us how he helped his father as a young boy, carrying bricks and learning carpentry. 4 generations of our family have lived in this house. After our parents passed, Carissa told me she couldn't bear to live in the house because it had too many memories. She wanted to sell it immediately and split the money. I still remember that conversation. She came over one morning about 2 weeks after the funeral and told me she had already contacted a real estate agent. I was shocked because we hadn't even finished sorting through our parents' belongings. I begged her not to sell. I explained how much family history was in this house. The measuring marks on the kitchen doorframe showing our heights as we grew up, the secret compartment our grandfather built in the living room fireplace, the apple trees our dad planted when each of us was born, everything about this house tells our family's story. I offered to buy her share, but as a new accountant, I didn't have nearly enough money. I asked her to wait a few years until I could save up, but she refused. Carissa became really aggressive about selling. She threatened to take me to court to force a sale if I didn't agree. She knew I couldn't afford a legal battle on top of everything else. I was still paying off my student loans and had just started my career. To keep the house, I had to take out a massive loan at a horrible interest rate because my credit wasn't great at the time. It was really difficult financially. I had to move back into my old bedroom because I couldn't afford to rent an apartment while paying the mortgage. I took on freelance accounting work on weekends and evenings, barely sleeping some weeks to make all the payments. It took me 10 years to pay off that loan. During that time, I couldn't afford to do much maintenance on the house. The roof started leaking, but I could only patch it temporarily. The old windows let in drafts, but replacing them was too expensive. I lived with a broken water heater for 6 months, taking cold showers while saving up to replace it. But I managed to keep the house, and over the past 5 years, I've slowly been renovating it room by room, trying to preserve as much of the original character as possible while making necessary updates. Last month, Carissa showed up at my door crying. I hadn't seen her in person for almost 2 years, we only really talked at family gatherings and on holidays. She told me that Tom had been cheating on her for the past 5 years with his coworker, and they were getting divorced. She had to move out of their house and wanted to move back into our parents' house with Emily, now 15F. Carissa was a mess, mascara running down her face as she told me how she regretted selling her share of the house. She said she finally understood why I fought so hard to keep it, and that she realized its importance now that she was losing her own home. She begged me to let her move in, saying we could be sisters again and live together like we used to when we were young. She even promised to help with the remaining renovations. I refused. I reminded her that she gave up her right to the house 15 years ago when she forced me to buy her out. She got emotional and said I was being cruel, that she was going through the most difficult time in her life and needed her family. She brought up our parents, saying they would have wanted us to help each other, and that they would be ashamed of me for turning my back on my sister. Emily called me later that night crying about how I was being mean to her mom when she needed help the most. She said she wanted to live in the house where her mom grew up, and that I was selfish for keeping it all to myself. This really hurt because I had tried to maintain a relationship with Emily over the years, sending birthday and Christmas gifts, but Carissa often returned them saying they didn't need anything from me. Since then, Carissa has been telling all our relatives that I'm heartless for not helping her in her time of need. Our Aunt Martha, who practically raised us after our mom went back to work, called me saying I should let bygones be bygones and help my sister. My cousins have been posting on social media about family loyalty and how some people forget where they came from. But I don't want to let her move in. I spent 15 years paying for and maintaining this house alone while Carissa was living her life in her big suburban home with Tom. She didn't care about family history or loyalty when she wanted to sell it. Now she only wants to move in because she needs a place to stay. I offered to help her find and rent an apartment, even offering to co-sign if needed, but she refuses, saying she wants to come home. She keeps showing up unannounced, crying and begging. Yesterday she brought Emily again, and they both sat on my porch for hours refusing to leave until I talked to them. They were ringing the doorbell, knocking on windows, and even tried to get in through the back door. I had to call the police to make them leave. Now all our relatives are angry at me for calling the police on my own sister and niece. I feel terrible about the whole situation, but I don't think I'm wrong. Carissa made her choice 15 years ago. She could have kept her share of the house, but she chose to sell it. I worked hard to keep this house in the family, sacrificing my own comfort and financial security for years. Now she wants to waltz back in when it's convenient for her. Ida? Update 1 first, I want to thank everyone for their support on my original post. The past 2 weeks have been absolute hell, and things have gotten much worse than I could have imagined. After my original post, Carissa completely lost it and escalated her behavior in ways I never thought possible. She started spreading rumors around town that I had actually forged documents 15 years ago to steal her share of the house. She told everyone that I took advantage of her grief over our parents' death to trick her into signing papers she didn't understand, and that she never received any money from me for her share of the house. I was completely blindsided by these accusations. I immediately contacted Richard, the lawyer who handled the sale 15 years ago. Thankfully, he's still practicing in town and remembered our case well. He said it's hard to forget 2 sisters fighting over their parents' house right after their tragic death. He still had all the documentation in his archives, including the notarized sale agreement with Carissa's signature, proof of the wire transfer to her account, and even his own detailed notes from our meetings. He remembered how Carissa had been the one pushing for a quick sale and how I had begged for more time to gather funds. I also dug through my old files and found my bank statements from that time showing the loan I took out, with the exact amount matching Carissa's share of the house value. I even found the property assessment report we had done before the sale. I thought having all this proof would clear things up quickly. But before I could show these documents to anyone, Carissa took her lies to the next level. She went to the local newspaper, the Daily Herald, with her story. They ran a front-page article titled "Local Woman Accuses Sister of Stealing Family Home." The article made me sound like some kind of monster who took advantage of my grieving sister and her newborn baby. They even included a picture of Carissa crying in front of our parents' house, which I later found out she took specially for the article. The impact on my life has been devastating. I live in a small town where everyone knows everyone, and my reputation has been completely ruined. People I've known my entire life, who watched me grow up, now look at me like I'm some kind of criminal. The ladies at my church, where I've been going for 20 years, whisper behind my back. I've lost 3 accounting clients who said they couldn't trust someone accused of fraud. I've received dozens of hateful emails and messages from people in town calling me every horrible name you can imagine. Last Tuesday, I woke up to find my car vandalized. Someone had spray painted the word thief across both sides and slashed my tires. The police said they couldn't do anything without evidence of who did it. I had to miss work that day dealing with insurance and getting my car towed to the shop. The repair shop owner, who's known me for years, made me pay up front because he said he couldn't trust I would pay the bill. I hired a lawyer immediately and sent Carissa a cease and desist letter. My lawyer also contacted the newspaper with all our documentation proving Carissa's allegations were false. They published a small retraction 3 days later on page 6, but honestly, the damage was already done. Nobody seems to care about the truth now that the lies are out there. The worst part in all of this has been Emily's involvement. Carissa apparently showed Emily some edited versions of the old documents, convincing her that I had stolen her mother's inheritance. Emily posted a long rant on social media about how I was a cruel, greedy aunt who never cared about her and had stolen from her mother when she was just a baby. She shared old family photos of us together and wrote about how fake I was all these years, pretending to care by sending gifts while sitting in her stolen house. This hurt more than anything else because I truly love Emily. I have a box in my closet with every drawing and school photo she ever sent me, even though Carissa returned most of my gifts to her. But what really broke my heart was finding out that Carissa had been planning this whole thing for months. My neighbor Linda told me she saw Carissa with a real estate agent back in March, 3 months before she showed up crying at my door. Carissa was walking around the property with the agent, taking pictures and discussing potential renovations. She told the agent she was planning to sell the house soon and wanted to know its current market value. She was so confident she could force me to let her move in that she was already making plans to sell the house again. The situation has gotten even more frightening in the past few days. I installed security cameras after the car incident, and I'm so glad I did. Carissa has shown up at least 5 times after being told to leave. Last night, she actually tried to break in through the kitchen window, screaming that she had as much right to be in the house as I did. The police caught her in the act this time, but they still just warned her and let her go. I'm meeting with my lawyer tomorrow to discuss getting a restraining order. I've started documenting everything, taking photos, saving emails, recording phone calls, my state is one-party consent, and keeping a detailed log of every incident. Even my always neutral cousin Mark called me yesterday to warn me that Carissa has been calling relatives asking for money to sue me for the house. I feel like I'm living in a nightmare, and I can't believe my own sister would do this to me. Update 2: I need to share some shocking information I discovered that changes everything about this situation. A distant cousin Rachel reached out to me after seeing Carissa's social media posts about our conflict. Rachel lives in California and we haven't spoken in years, but she felt she needed to tell me something important about Carissa's financial situation when our parents died. According to Rachel, about 2 months before our parents' accident, our maternal grandmother had secretly given Carissa a significant inheritance, $200,000 in cash. Grandmother had always favored Carissa, she looked exactly like mom, and wanted to help her start her life with a new baby. Carissa never told anyone about this money, not even Tom knew about it initially. Rachel only knew because she had driven grandmother to the bank that day and helped her arrange the transfer to Carissa's account. This revelation made me feel physically sick. When Carissa was pressuring me to sell our parents' house, she had $200,000 sitting in her account. She could have easily waited for me to save up money to buy her share, or she could have bought my share outright. Instead, she forced me to take out a predatory loan that took me a decade to pay off, while she had more than enough money to be patient. When I confronted Carissa about this over text, she initially denied everything. But after I told her Rachel had proof of the bank transfer, she broke down and admitted it was true. She said she had used the money to buy a vacation home in Florida with Tom, the same vacation home he got in their divorce settlement. She tried to justify it by saying she was young and stupid, and that Tom had pressured her into buying the vacation property as an investment. But that's not all I discovered. Through mutual friends, I learned that Carissa's divorce situation isn't what she presented to me at all. Tom didn't just suddenly start cheating on her 5 years ago. They had actually been separated for 2 years already, living apart while trying to keep up appearances for their families. Carissa had been living in a luxury apartment that cost $3,000 a month, paid for by their joint savings. She only wanted to move in with me because Tom finally cut off her financial support and told her to get a job. I also found out that Carissa had been lying about her job situation. She told me and everyone else that she was working part-time at a boutique, but her friend Maria let slip that Carissa hasn't worked in over a year. She quit her job because she didn't like the early morning hours, expecting Tom to keep supporting her lifestyle. Now she's running out of money and desperate for a place to stay. Emily came to see me alone yesterday after school. This was the first time we've spoken face to face since her social media posts about me. She broke down crying and apologized for what she had posted. She revealed that Carissa had actually dictated those posts to her, telling her exactly what to write and guilt-tripping her by saying they might end up homeless if Emily didn't help convince me to let them move in. Emily also told me something that broke my heart. Carissa had been poisoning her against me her entire life. Whenever my birthday or Christmas gifts would arrive for Emily, Carissa would tell her that I was only sending them out of guilt for stealing their share of the house. She told Emily that I was living in luxury while they struggled, even though anyone could see that their suburban house was much nicer than mine. Every time Emily asked about visiting me, Carissa would tell her I didn't really want to see her and was just pretending to be nice. The most shocking part was when Emily showed me her old diary from when she was 10. Carissa had told her that I was the reason her dad was always working so much, because I had somehow stolen money from him too. Emily had written about how much she hated me back then, believing I was the source of all her family's problems. She was in tears showing me this, saying she now realizes how much her mom had manipulated her. I'm still processing all of this information. Finding out about the secret inheritance and Carissa's lies about her divorce makes her recent behavior even more appalling. She's been playing the victim and destroying my reputation in town, all while hiding her own deceptions. I've forwarded all this information to my lawyer, who says it strengthens our case against her for defamation. The truth really does come out eventually. Update 3: The situation has finally reached a conclusion, though not a happy one. After Emily's revelations about Carissa's manipulation and lies, I decided to take legal action against Carissa for defamation. My lawyer gathered all the evidence, the newspaper article, social media posts, documentation of the vandalism, testimony from Emily and Rachel about Carissa's lies, proof of my lost accounting clients, and the police reports from her trespassing attempts. We filed the lawsuit, and Carissa immediately tried to countersue, claiming emotional distress and something about verbal agreements from 15 years ago. Her lawyer must have realized how weak her case was because they quickly offered to settle out of court. The settlement required Carissa to make a public apology on social media and in the same newspaper that published her initial lies. She also had to pay for the damages to my car, compensate me for my lost clients, and cover my legal fees. Carissa tried to negotiate the terms, saying she couldn't afford the payment. But then Emily found bank statements in their old house showing that Carissa had been hiding money from the sale of her jewelry and designer bags over the past year. She had nearly $50,000 stashed away while claiming poverty. Emily brought these documents to me, and when my lawyer presented them during mediation, Carissa finally agreed to the full settlement. The public apology was posted last week. Carissa wrote a brief, cold statement admitting that she had lied about me forging documents and stealing her inheritance. She acknowledged that she had received full payment for her share of the house 15 years ago. But she couldn't resist adding passive-aggressive comments about how sisters should help each other in times of need, still trying to make me look bad. Carissa finally stopped harassing me after her lawyer explained that any further contact could result in criminal charges. She's now living in Arizona with some guy she met online 2 months ago. From what Emily tells me, she left suddenly without even properly packing her things, just taking her important documents and leaving everything else behind. Emily decided to stay here with Tom to finish her last 2 years of high school. Tom has really stepped up as a father since all this happened. He's got full custody now and bought a small house near Emily's school. Emily visits me every weekend now, and we're slowly rebuilding our relationship. She's been helping me organize old family photos and letters, learning about her grandparents and our family history that Carissa never told her about. What surprised me most was finding Emily genuinely interested in the house and its history. She sits for hours with me looking at old blueprints, asking questions about which parts grandfather built first, where the original windows were, and how the house has changed over time. Last weekend, she helped me restore an old built-in cabinet in the dining room that our grandfather had made. She said it feels like she's finally getting to know her real family history, not the twisted version Carissa fed her. I've started documenting everything about the house, taking photos of all the original features, writing down the stories behind each room, scanning old construction photos our grandfather took, and noting all the renovations I've done. I want to create a proper record so future generations will know the truth about how this house was preserved. Some relatives, especially Aunt Martha, still think I should have helped Carissa despite everything. They say family should always come first. But I know I made the right choice. This house isn't just a building to me, it's our family's legacy that I fought to protect when no one else would. Looking at Emily learning about her heritage and finally understanding what this house means to our family, I know I did the right thing. Emily asked me last week if she could have some of her graduation photos taken in front of the house next year. She said she wants to honor her grandparents and great-grandfather who built it. That meant more to me than any court victory or public apology ever could.